So the goal is to use it to find that self-awareness, to find where you're at, and then use it to grow.
Welcome to Dental Hygiene Development. We invite you to listen along as we discuss all things dental, including personal and professional growth. I'm Autumn.
And I'm Paige. We're just two best friends discussing what we love to do and how we do it. Grab your Diet Coke, Diet Dr. Pepper, or your favorite glass of wine, and let's talk about anything dental hygiene.
Hey guys, welcome back. Look who's back!
Hi!
Yay, Paige is back!
It's me.
We were so glad to have Victoria last month, but on the Dental Hygiene Development podcast. But we are so glad to have Paige
Thank
back.
you. Yes, Victoria did such a good job. I was so glad she was able to come in and kind of give me a little break to be home with little Titus.
Yes. So, with that being said, what's going on with Titus?
He's good. He's already a month old, which is crazy.
Wow, that is crazy.
I can't believe it. I tell Jack all the time, we already have a teenager. Like, he's growing so fast. But, yeah, he's really good. He's finally starting to sleep at night, which is fabulous.
Yes.
He does about 4 hours at a time, so that gives us about 3 hours of sleep, which is
Who would have
fantastic.
thought that you would have been excited about 3 hours of sleep?
Oh, I know, because I'm like I need all the sleep, you know.
Me too.
And so that has been a very big adjustment. Like 6 hours of sleep a night is like heaven now, and I used to get like 12 hours of sleep. So, you know, we're getting used to it. A little more Diet Coke and caffeine in my life, but
Yeah, gotta do what you gotta do.
that's right. But otherwise, he's doing really good. He's healthy. He's growing. He's gaining weight. All the good things.
He's
with
so
babies.
cute. I love going over to have Titus cuddles.
I swear he looks just like his daddy. I call him a mini Jack because some days I'm like, you are a spitting image of your dad. But
I've heard that they say that the reason that babies look like their dads is like a biological thing because you know who the mom is because they carried him. So it's like,
yeah,
I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard
that makes sense. Yeah.
But it makes sense. Like, you know who the dad
Yeah.
is. Like, it's their way of knowing. But
Yeah. Well, it was
he's
funny
super cute.
because my mom sent me my baby picture, and that was the first time that I was like, oh my gosh, he does look like me. He is my baby, you know.
Even though you're the one that birthed him.
That's right. I knew he popped out of there, so he was mine. But I'm like, wow, I can actually see traits of me in him instead of just this tiny little mini Jack. But, yeah, it's been really fun and exciting and a learning process, just like everything else.
And I'm sure that as he grows, like his facial expressions and like
Oh my
stuff
gosh.
as you learn them, I'm sure
Yes.
there's going to be some Paige in there too, not just Jack.
I just learned the other day that babies mimic your facial expressions. Like, it's
Okay.
maybe like a wives' tale type of thing, but I did it the other day. They tell you to like stick out your tongue and do different things, and he really does. He'll be like, it's so funny. And he looks at you kind of like, what are you doing? And then he'll do it, and it is so funny. And so he's finally starting to like try to smile and do different things with his face, and it's so cute. I'm like,
that's
it's not
exciting.
just gas. You're actually trying to smile. So it's been really fun.
That's cute.
It's special. Yeah.
Well, it was kind of good that we ended last month's podcast talking about being a working mom and the stresses that come with it. So what do you have to say about that?
Yes. I mean, I feel like I would say you don't really know. You think you can like prepare for motherhood, and like I did all the researching. I was like, I'm gonna be so prepared. Nothing's gonna take me, by surprise. But it's one of those things like until you're doing it, you are really figuring things out on the fly. And so my biggest advice is I feel like women who are career oriented and want to grow in their profession, you have to give yourself some grace in the fact of like this is something new that you're learning, and it's okay to take your maternity leave. I know so many women who are like, I'm going back in 6 weeks, like taking the minimum time because they're afraid of like the repercussions of taking that full maternity leave. But like, I would say take that time to get into a good routine and a good rhythm because the amount of stress that you have will be so much less going back into your work and finding your balance. It gives you the time to learn and figure out in the space that you need so that you can go back into your other roles with confidence and not being so stressed. I mean, you're going to be somewhat stressed figuring it out, but I think that's one of my biggest tips is to allow yourself the time you need. Like, yes, your work is important, but both of your works at this point is important. It's like having two jobs. And so you do have to give to both of those in equal parts the best you can. But I think it was a very good topic, and you guys did a really good job I really enjoyed listening to the podcast. I was on there like, I'm listening for all the tips. I think I commented on that one. But, yeah, so I think that would be my biggest thing is to, like, give yourself some grace. Like, it's okay to be a great professional and dedicate yourself to that, but it's also a career choice and, like, something that you're doing with your time to be a mother. And so you can give time to that as well and try not to feel guilty about where the balance goes. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to need you to remind me of that.
Yes. Well, the thing is, it won't always be equal. Sometimes you're going to have to give more to being a mother.
Right.
And sometimes you're going to have to give more to being, at work, and that's okay. So.
Yep, that's the definition of good life balance.
Absolutely.
You have to have them in different times, and it's not always
Yes.
equal in the right things. It's just doing the right things at the right time.
Yep. Well, there's the physical balance and the mental balance. Both are difficult sometimes. Get you a good support person that checks in on you. And
well, I'm glad that I have Paige now, so when it happens to me, when it happens to me. That sounds terrible. Is that a good way to put mother? When it happens to me.
Maybe birthing the baby out is a when it happens to me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to need advice on that.
There is no advice. Get the epidural. That's the advice.
Get the drugs.
Yes. Because even with the drugs, like, my labor was totally fine. We did have a little bit of a complicated situation. I had a really fast labor. They had to give me some medication to slow my labor down. It made him have low blood sugar and all this crazy stuff. So he got stuck in the birth canal, so we had to rush into a C-section and all this craziness. But I did have the epidural, and it only took on one side. So I was fine with all the contractions and everything. Like, I told the nurse, I'm like, is this really it? Like, I was 10 centimeters, totally doing the whole thing. And I was like, I've had a stomach ache that like hurt worse than this. Like, I've been crying before with a stomach ache. Like, and she was just laughing, like, maybe you have a good pain tolerance. But once he got stuck, that was a whole nother ball game. I was like throwing up because the pain was so bad and all this stuff. Oh. And I had the epidural. So it did only take on one side, so that wasn't very helpful. But that's my advice. I know I was all like, let's try to do this natural as possible. And then I'm like, where are those medicines?
God made them for a reason.
That's right. It's balance.
That's right. It's balance.
It's a good balance.
It is.
We waited till 41 weeks because we were trying to give him time to, like, go into labor naturally. We didn't want to be induced and all that stuff. So, we were trying to follow the plan and all that. But you know what? Sometimes you just, in the moment, you do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do. I hear that.
Yes. So.
All right. Well, we're so glad that Paige is back and we can, like, talk again.
That's right. I'm very happy to be having an adult conversation. I love my baby, but I think this is the first time I've been out of the house since he's born, like, without him. So.
Okay.
It feels kind of crazy, but good. Yeah.
Okay. You're going to be ready to go home.
That's right. I thought about bringing him with me and, like, showing him off a little bit, but he was having a little tummy fit, so.
That's okay. You can bring him back later.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to kind of jump into the next topic, which we have talked a little bit about.
Yes.
In general, because you've heard us bring up Enneagram before.
Yes.
Paige and I have discussed it, just bringing it up in natural conversation. But for those of you who don't know what the Enneagram is, which is a lot of it, or a lot of people, we're going to talk a little bit more about it and why Paige and I do reference it and why we like to talk about it and why it's made a difference in our lives. There's a lot to the Enneagram.
Absolutely.
A whole lot that you could do so many studies on. Mm-hmm. And there's more things that I want to do, but we're going to do a quick rundown of it.
Yeah.
So, like the generals, and you can know where to go find resources to help you find out what your Enneagram type is.
Yep. Kind of get you started on, what it is and how you can get started with it.
Yeah. And then I'm sure later on we'll come back and we can do more, like, in-depth discussion about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this way you kind of know when Paige and I are discussing what we're talking about, you're like,
what it is.
What is she talking about? She's an 8, she's a 2, okay.
What are these numbers?
What are these weird things that they're talking about? But basically, the Enneagram is a personality test. So there's so many personality tests. I'm sure you've all taken them. The difference that in the Enneagram and other personality types is that the Enneagram discusses the why behind the behavior.
Yep. So
what brought you there? So while the other ones discuss the exact behavior, of course this is going to have behaviors in it, but it discusses the why and why we do that. So for me, the Enneagram has made a huge difference in my life because it has made me very self-aware.
Yeah.
And I think it can go either way. So a lot of people use the Enneagram and they use it for self-awareness and personal and professional growth, which is what I'm using it for. But other people use it as a crutch. So they're like, well, I'm an 8, so I'm just going to be confrontational all the time, and you're just going to have to get over it.
And that would be an unhealthy 8.
Exactly. So there's health and there's unhealth in all the different types, not just 8s.
Yeah.
But I use 8 because I am an 8. But so you have to use it in the right way.
Yep.
And
it's a
so
growth tool.
A growth tool, exactly. That's a really good way to put it. And, on dental hygiene development, that's all we're about. We're about professional, personal growth, and whether you're a hygienist or not. So I know a lot of our family members listen to the podcast. They're like, we get started, and then you start talking all these terms and hygiene, and you're like, no clue.
What are you talking about?
What's a prophy?
Which, honestly, normal people should know what all that stuff is. That way you can advocate for yourself in your health. But anyways, that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. But for those of you who listen to our podcast and our family and friends and just want to hear us talk, which you probably hear us talk all the time, but hear us talk and understand what's going on. This is for no matter if you're a hygienist, no matter who you are.
This applies to everyone.
Yeah, you can use it in all different facets.
Any career, any life, relationships, personal relationships, all that stuff. It applies to everything. So it's really, really, really good. We love it.
There's a lot of tools, and I know a lot of people have, some people have really strong opinions about Enneagram and say, oh, it's of the devil and you shouldn't use it, which is crazy.
I haven't heard that one yet.
Oh, yeah, I've heard it a lot of different times, but it's crazy. And we're not going to talk, I don't know the in-depth details of where Enneagram started, but it started a long time ago, ancient stuff. But then the Catholics used it too, and they're starting in the 60s and 70s.
That's cool.
And so it is not of the devil. I promise you. We would not be talking. No, we would not be talking about that here.
I love Jesus. So.
Me too. So we're not trying to bring the devil into this.
No. None of that juju.
No, we don't need all that in our lives. But there's a couple of different resources, and actually, speaking of the faith-based one, Beth and Jeff McCord are Enneagram teachers or coaches, I should say.
Yeah.
And they have a website called yourenneagram.com. And it has a free assessment that you could take. And there's books there. And you can actually, they will work with you all the way up to become a coach yourself. And honestly, I was listening to a podcast about last night, and I was like, you know what? I would love to do that.
You'd be great at it.
Not that I have time to do that now.
Add one more thing to your plate.
But maybe one day I'll do more study just because I think it's so interesting.
It's very
But the difference in Beth and Jeff McCord and some of the other ones is they do it from a faith-based perspective. So if you're into that kind of thing, I would definitely check out your Enneagram coach.com. And of course, we're going to link all these things in the bottom.
Be in the description.
But the one that I took, and I think you've heard me talk about how Chad and I took an Enneagram test on our honeymoon because we're weird like that. The one that we took was the IEQ 9, and it's by Ian Morgan Cron. Mm-hmm. And I read his book, Road Back to You, which is really good. It breaks it down very well in each one. He has a new book that's on my list of things to read, and it's called The Story of You.
Yeah.
But you could also listen to Ian Morgan Cron on the Andy Stanley Leadership Podcast. He's on there. I listened to 4 different podcasts that he's done with Andy Stanley. And if some of you don't know, Andy Stanley is a Christian pastor. Yeah.
He's well known. He has a lot of church plants.
Yes.
So,
and we go to his church plant here in Noonan. South Side. But I don't know if this code still works, so I'm going to throw it out there just in case it works, because Ian Morgan Cron's IEQ 9 test does have a fee that goes with it. It's very in-depth, though. I will tell you, it is very in-depth.
It's worth the money.
It is worth the money to us, especially if you're doing it in a professional growth type thing, because there's a standard one, which gives you a lot of information still, and it's $60, but there's a pro one, and it has leadership and management skills, how you work with your team and build your team afterwards, all those kind of things. That one's $120. So there is a fee with that. On one of the podcasts, he gave the promo code Northside 2020 Obviously, that was in 2020. So I'm not sure if the promo still works, but heck, I'm just throwing it out there just in case it does. You know, I'll save you some money.
That's right.
And maybe one day we'll have Ian Morgan Cron on our
gosh.
podcast, and then he can give us our own dental hygiene development.
That would be fabulous.
Yeah, anybody.
Hey, Ian, if you're out there,
listen to us.
Yeah, come on.
We'll have you on.
We love you, man.
We do. And he's actually an Episcopal priest, too. So it's not of the devil.
It's just perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
It's literally perfect.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different places that you can go find. I mean, you can Google all kinds of different stuff on the Enneagram.
There's so many like free. There's like short tests and long tests and like whatever you want to do. I mean, you don't have to dive straight in if you're kind of on the fence about it. Go take one of the little free tests, see what it says, read about it, and if you want to dive into it more, then maybe look at investing some money into it. But yeah, we have really seen a lot of growth in ourselves. It really teaches you about yourself. So it's worth it even personally to me because it tells you what you typically struggle with. It almost feels like you're being called out a little bit. You're like,
that's how you know it's you.
Oh,
that's how you know that's the number when they're like, talk about it.
And especially when they point out the unhealthy traits and you recognize those in yourself and you're like, ooh, I might need to work on that a little bit. And you're like, maybe that's why I haven't. I'm a 2, okay? And 2s have a hard time getting over things, like letting things go. And I'm always like, oh, I got to really work on that. And I have friends that I call and I'll be like, I'm being a little sensitive about this, right? And I'm like, I need to let this go. And they're like, yes, let that go. That's why are you still thinking about that? That was 5 months ago.
Yeah.
So it's really good to help you in transitioning out of things that are negative or not good for you and getting into that positive side. So,
and kind of like you were saying, you have friends that you'll call and ask.
Yes.
Because the thing about the Enneagram is that it's a personality type, and there's the basic premise is there's 9 different personality types.
Yep.
And you develop them when you're young due to something that happened when you were young, and so it's to help you cope with having relationships and building relationships and how you cope with fear and anxiety and all those things.
And they say that your Enneagram is your Enneagram. It's like ingrained in you. It's not something that you will develop and change over time. Like you are what you are, and once you get your type, you are that type. It's not going to change over time
because it's embedded inside of
exactly.
you. So it's not just
it's not something that you develop.
It's not bad.
It's just how you are and who you are. Like naturally. So that's another cool thing about the Enneagrams. It doesn't change once you figure out your type.
And the thing to remember is we're all seeing the world in a different view.
Yes.
And it's weird to think that because when you think about yourself, you see the world in one way and you think that everybody else around you is seeing it the exact same way you are.
And they're not.
They're not. So that's exactly what the Enneagram is doing. It's pointing out there's 9 different normals.
Yeah.
Like we're not all the same. We don't all process things the same way. We don't all react to things the same way. And there's a reason behind it. Yeah. It's how we're feeling. And so they're all normal. So it's none of these are bad.
Yes.
They can all be used very healthfully and they can all be used very poorly and stressfully. So the goal is to use it to find that self-awareness, to find where you're at, and then use it to grow. And not use it as a crutch and not use it to be like, well, this is just who I am, but be like, this is who I am and this is where what I can do with those things. Like we can all grow and do wonderful things with our personality types.
Absolutely. And this kind of reminds me of like scripture, which, sorry, I know not everybody's faith-based, but, the Lord says like your heart can be deceptive. And this goes to like, this is all about how you feel about things. And it teaches you how to, navigate your feelings, but also with using your mind and how to process those in the moment. Because a lot of times, anytime I've gotten myself in trouble in a situation, it's because I reacted off of my initial feelings. And it kind of goes to like, you could be in the room with people and one person could be saying something and then say there's 6 people listening. Those 6 people, if they're all, one of these 9 Enneagram types, they're all going to hear different things. So you could ask them and be like, what did you hear me say? And each one of them is going to repeat something back that's different. Yeah. And it's really cool because once you realize that perspective and you can start thinking as a whole about that and recognizing those things, it's a lot easier to navigate your own personal frustrations because you realize that their thinking and feelings behind it are totally different. They're maybe not bad, or why you're frustrated. It helps you understand, and you're like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense.
It gives you're not as frustrated with them because you realize they're seeing it in a different way.
Yeah. And it's really cool to do when you can sit down and do it with a group of people you're with and really learn each other. But do we want to like kind of go through the types, like just
for sure, so everybody has an idea.
Like
so we'll run down 1 to 9 and give you a little bit about what they're motivated by, and then we'll talk a little bit about fears and leadership. Like I said, this is going to be a very quick overview because we don't have time to sit here and talk to you all day. I mean, y'all, we probably have time to sit here and
seminar.
Yeah, you totally could. So, like, we could sit here and talk to you about it, but I guarantee you don't want to sit here and listen to us that long discussing it. So we'll give the brief overview.
Yeah. Okay. So Enneagram number 1 is the perfectionist. They're motivated by being morally right and perfect. So very detail oriented.
I thought I was a 1.
I can see you having some of that,
For the longest time, I was a 1. But the difference in the 1, because I am task-oriented too.
Yes.
But I am not detail-oriented.
Yeah.
So, whereas my husband is a 1. So, he is very perfectionist. So, when he's doing film and video, he'll be like, what do you think about that? I said, it looks great. It's like, to me, I'm like, it either looks good or it doesn't. Like, you find one way and you go with it. Like, we're not going to sit here and debate, like, this can be a little bit, this can be a little bit. Detail. But to him, he wants to be perfect.
Very descriptive.
And I know Ian Morgan Cron kind of changed it because they call it the perfectionist. But he said that sounds kind of bad because, everybody thinks they're a perfectionist. So he's now changed it to the improver.
I like that.
Yeah,
put a good spin on it.
That's a nice way to put it.
Absolutely, I love that. I think I'm a little OCD, so I do have a little bit of that, like very detailed, like perfectionist. But I'm also like super go with the flow. So I don't know. I'm a weird mix.
Maybe
of
that's your wing. I don't know, but you could be a wing 3 too because you identify with the 3 too.
Yeah. I got all kind of identity. I got all the wings. No. But I am a 2, which is our next one, and that's called a helper. I am a strong 2. Like, there is no denying it. I've also taken the Myers-Briggs testing, and I usually people are like a good mix of like the strong letters and the like soft letters. I don't know how to explain it. It's been a while, but I had all the soft letters, like, and that's kind of rare to be all to this one side. I didn't have any.
Don't feel bad because anytime I take any test, I'm very strong to the dominant side. Yes. So we're very different.
We're like complete opposites, but we work like off of each other's strengths. It's awesome.
That goes to show you that if you know you're self-aware, that you can work with somebody who's completely opposite with you, but understand where they're coming from.
Absolutely. So I'll just read out the description for a 2. Motivated by being supportive and doing for others, being needed. Like, you're just like, you'll do anything for anybody, and sometimes you're a little sacrificial of yourself, and you can kind of get caught up in how you feel about things. So for me, being very feeling aware is a good thing. But 3 is an achiever. You're motivated by being successful at all costs. And then 4 would be an individualist, motivated by being original and like no one else, can be kind of moody.
Apparently, they say that the number 4s, there's the least amount of people are number 4s.
Really?
Yeah, that's what Ian Morgan Cron says, but he also said they have no real scientific data to prove it.
Huh.
He calls them the unicorns of the Enneagram.
That's interesting, because the test that I took, it said my strongest, like, main ones were 2, 4, and 6. And then obviously you could have wings off of that.
But you're very creative, so I think that's where that 4 comes into you because you're about being original and you.
Yes.
So you're very creative
minded. Yep, for sure. All right, number 5, we've got the investigator, detached and motivated by numbers and facts.
They can be very they're not emotionally driven at all.
Yeah.
They're very detached, like, as far as emotions go. And they are the kind of people who like to spend time by themselves, and they like a report.
Yes.
Like, very analytical.
It's probably one of the hardest personality types for me.
Me too.
Because I'm like, they don't care about it. I'm like, that was so mean or so whatever, and they are not driven by feelings at all. And so
they're literally driven by the numbers.
To understand. Yes.
Yeah.
So I have to be aware of that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're weird.
Yeah,
they're weird to me too. I get that
how
too.
they thrive.
It's just how they thrive. Yeah. They like to be by themselves, and I don't know anybody who's a 5 in my life. Maybe I do, but I don't think of them that way.
Yeah. I don't even.
But not I'm close to. Not that I'm close to. I don't
But
think.
it's funny once you like dive into this stuff because it's like to you like being a feeling person to me, I'm just like, how can you not be? You know, I can't understand. It makes me thrive. It makes me happy. It's like what drives me. It's like the feelings of how do you feel? And like when I'm listening to you, I'm like absorbing your feelings and like, you know, I'm with you and I'm going to do whatever we need to do to like, you know, I'm just into it. And I can't understand why someone would not be that invested in somebody else. But they are.
You would make them come off harsh.
Yeah. But it's my happy place. It's how I'm meant to be. It's what I have to contribute. And it's a positive thing. And I'm not good with numbers.
Me neither.
So what would I do without a type 5? I need one of those, you know, and that's their happy place. That's where they thrive. They love it. It's just their innate being. And so you have to understand that, like, it is. Once you understand, like, everybody's not like me, and it's not that they're being unfeeling. It's just that's not their natural tendency.
Yeah.
They
That's
have
all makes them
another,
happy.
a different strength area that makes them happy.
Yeah.
And you need to be happy. As a 2, I can be like, and you need to be happy and supportive of that in them, you know. And as a 2, I can pull that out and be like, okay, you know, but other personality types have a hard time with that as well. So as a 2, I can be like, oh, let me share that. Yeah, so I think that's really cool when you can step back and say, hey, you know, that might frustrate me, but also realize like that's their happy place, that's their thriving zone. You should support them in that and be happy for them that that's their talent and that's what they're contributing.
Living in it.
Yeah, and you can't contribute that. Like maybe you wish you could, but you know, be like, hey, let's work together versus making it like a, I don't know.
Yeah. Butting heads.
A hard point, or something you butt heads over. So yeah, really cool. All right, next one is a 6, which is a loyalist, which I will do this. Motivated by security and support. A little bit of pessimist, and you can have anxiety. So
they say that they just think of everything in the negative sense. So they're always looking for.
You're looking at worst case scenario.
The worst case scenario. That's how you
what could
see
go
it
wrong?
first. Exactly.
Yes, and I think I have a little bit of that because of my strong 2 as being a helper. Like I try to anticipate a lot of things of like
what can go wrong,
and
how am I going to fix it?
Am I going to fix it? And how can I be helpful? And how can I change this? So a lot of times I can see something that other people don't see because of all of my 2 stuff. So I think that's why I tend to pick up a little bit of that in my testing. But it's funny when they're like, you're a pessimist, because I'm not a pessimist.
It sounds bad.
It does sound bad, but I'm honestly probably like, I'm overly optimistic and like see the world in like rainbows and butterflies half the time. Like, woohoo! I can be kind of childlike in my sense of wonder in the world and like joy. But I feel like people in my life have told me like they sometimes see me as irresponsible because of that. So over time, I have learned to tame that down or pick and choose who I show that side of myself to, because I do want to come out. I am very responsible and I'm very capable, and I want people to
see that.
Read that versus, oh, well, she's very childlike and that just reads immature. But I just have a joy for things. Like, I can appreciate, like, the field of flowers, and, like, I'm going to go out there and, like, spin around and, like, enjoy the air. And
we should enjoy all of it.
Yes. So
Which is kind of what a 7 is. Because they're the direct opposite of the loyals, the pessimists. They're the enthusiast. The 7 is the enthusiast. And when I think of the 7s, all I think of is YOLO.
That's
and they YOLO, and then they have severe FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yes,
because they're always thinking about what's coming next.
Yes,
so they're like super happy-go-lucky, and just like I work with the associate hygienist I work with, Erin. She is a 7, and nothing phases her. She just has a great person. Nice? Yes, it would be very nice. That is not me at all. So nothing
lucky
phases
number
her.
7.
Exactly. She just comes in. She has a great attitude. And she's like, they're motivated by doing the next best thing. Like, they are like already thinking like, what's next? What am I going to do?
Sounds like you
what
should hire some 7s.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what is next? What am I thinking of? What's going to be the best thing for me to do? What's the next adventure? And so some people like who are very analytical, like the 5 would probably think a 7 has lost their mind because they're already thinking about what's going next. And they're like, hold on, we don't even have the numbers for what's going on now. So I can see in business they would work. You need both of those things because you need someone who's very analytical and seeing things from a very like numbers oriented and what's going on and very like facts. And then you had the person who wants to grow and who has all these exciting things, and so they're willing to more venture out to those things. Which
is funny because I think although these are not our types, you seem to be very good about like, hey, let's set a date for this upcoming task. And I'm like thought about 30 things like 3 years from now that we need to do. So like I'm a little bit more of that like, woohoo, head in the clouds, like we can do all these things. And she's like, well, what are we going to talk about tomorrow? So I feel like we have a little bit of that opposite too, which is good. Like I need somebody to like reel me in and be like, look, let's just do one thing at a time. And like, that's where the creative, side of me comes in. Mm-hmm. But it's funny to go through these because you can pick up a little bit of like different types, but you will know once you go through these, your main type, like you'll be like, oh yeah, that's totally me. I'm 100% a 2,
And I need that 7 in my life.
Absolutely.
Because, like, I need Aaron. Because when I come to work, I'm literally thinking about tasks. Like, this needs to be done for us to do a good job. Yep. And she's thinking, oh, if it's just going to work out, and it's great. And she is really good with her I'm not saying I'm not good with my patients, and I can take that out of it. But she can, like, sit down and just, like, discuss anything. And she's already thinking about what's going to be next tomorrow and how great. She just has a great attitude.
Yeah.
So those enthusiasts are great to have in your life.
Yeah, that's awesome.
The 8 is me.
The 8 is Autumn. Look,
the Challenger.
Let you read this one out.
Yeah, the Challenger. That sounds bad. I think 8s have a bad rap because the Challenger does sound bad, and they could argue with a wall sometimes. Yeah. But we're motivated by being in control. Yeah. Like, very much so. Like, what really gets me stressed out or makes me have anxiety is when I cannot control something. Yeah. And so I know that about myself. And we do not like being vulnerable at all. Yeah. Like, we do those things to be in control, to hide or mask any feelings on the inside of me. So where you're like really feeling,
pouring out all
the feelings, I'm trying to suppress them. Like, I don't want somebody to know that. It takes a lot. Like, my husband had to learn it takes a lot for me to get to that point where I'm open with my feelings. Yeah. And we can discuss them. And if I can truly feel vulnerable with him, that's how I knew we were in a good place. Like, he's the one. Because if I can be vulnerable with you, that means I feel safe with you. Right. And we're also justice seekers. So, like, if someone, especially for people who I'm very protective. So, like, say somebody did something to Paige, she's going to be sad about it, and I'm going to be like, oh, heck no. Like,
when we going?
What are we going to do about this? Because this is not okay.
Very true.
And I'm the same way at work, though, too, because, hopefully at work you're making relationships with your team. So once I make a relationship with my team, I feel that we should be treating them a certain way. And so if I feel like something's being done the wrong way, for my patients too, like anybody that I'm connected to, we need to be doing it the right way, and we need to be taking care of them. Yep. And so I'm very protective. Yeah. So don't get me that side of me, because that's the first way to make me like lose it.
Honestly, I'll say though, you are an incredible leader because you're an 8, and I tell her this all the time. Because she is protective. She does want things to be done right. She wants people to be treated correctly. And she also wants them to grow and develop. And she has a very clear set plan in doing that. And so I always tell her, I'm like, you're an incredible leader. Like, I admire that in you. And even though it does sound a little bit like you do get a bad rap, I think you have an incredible personality, because you really, you not only take up for me personally, but in the dental field, I feel like we have a rap, like we also have a stigma of, not hygienists sometimes feel not treated appropriately in their dental setting. Like, overworked, or maybe that their higher ups are not listening to them, or maybe not being treated appropriately. And I think for you in a leadership position, and especially how you work, that your team feels like they have somebody they can actually come and talk to. You're the trusted person in the situation, whereas you have a hard time trusting. But they can come to you,
That's true.
and
It's weird,
they really have somebody to go to. And then you're going to, in an appropriate way, like address those things that maybe they don't have the confidence to address for themselves. Because like me, I'm the type, like, if I'm frustrated about something, like, I hate conflict, and like I'm all my feelings. I don't want to hurt anybody else's feelings. Yeah. Like, I'm not necessarily going to, I have to really work at, which I have become better at, but I'm not really going to go and just tell you right off the bat how I'm feeling about that. Whereas you're just like, hey, let's get this out. And I think that's very helpful in a, like,
I think
setting.
Kind of like we talked about earlier, there's a healthy one and there's a not healthy one. And I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. Before I was self-aware of my challenger, number 8, I was probably not very healthy because you just come off and you come off very harsh. And so I still have to work on not coming out harsh.
Human nature.
It's my nature that I'm just going to tell you like it is and be very direct. Yeah. And I have to work very hard at saying the right things at the right time, because if you come off too direct, people just think you're a bitch, right? Like, they're going to think that
especially as a woman.
As a female. Yeah, it's sad. But, like, that, you get a bad rap for that. Yeah. And people will write you off. So when I get that passionate about something, I have to step back and think about what's the right way for me to say it that's going to make an impact that people are going to listen to, and not just write me off and say she's just being ugly, you know? And it took a lot of self-growth for me to come to this place, because, and I still work on it, because if you get me going and I'm tired or I really am passionate and frustrated about something, it could come off that way. And so you have to step back and be able to take criticism. And which was hard. And I've had somebody, like, recently that I work with come and say, because I am so direct, I will just, like, send an email or a text, and I don't, like, say, hey, how are you? Like, that's not me. Like, hey, how are you? What are you doing? I just say, this needs this, and this. Like, I'm very direct about what needs to be done. And they came to me and were like, Autumn, I would really appreciate it if you addressed me. I know you're direct, but I appreciate it if you had a greeting to me first.
Like, hey, hope you're having a good day. Like, can you do X, Y, and Z?
And it hurt at first because she said that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I do not, and I don't mean to come off that way. That's just how I am. And so you have to take criticism and be able, and that's with any of these things. Like, if someone tells you something, you have to be able to take the criticism and then learn to change it in the right way.
I feel like a lot of people, when you first go into this, you're going to realize you're a lot more unhealthy than you think, because you're not aware of the unhealthy side of yourself, and you haven't become mentally aware of that enough to learn to control it. And so, and even then, like you said, it's still hard to control. And I feel like this helped me a lot, especially as a feeler. Here's my feeler perspective, that a lot of times you have conversations with people and you're literally going off what they say or their vibe and all of that stuff. But if you have an idea of which Enneagram type that they are, you can know more of their intent. And behind why they might be very, coming across like angry or passionate or direct or whatever. Like, I'll find myself in conversation, like, I'll get fired up and, like, upset about something, and I'll think through it, and then I'll be like, you know what, the reason I was so upset about that is because I have so much care and so much love and so much, like, passion for this, and I want it to be a positive, and so that's why I reacted so negatively. But if you are being aware of that and you're in a conversation with somebody, say you're in a leadership role and you're trying to discuss something with someone and they get upset with you and are coming at you, as a leader, it's good for you to know, like, don't react to that emotionally, because that's what they're doing in this moment. You need to give them some time, but also know behind it, why are they getting so upset or, whatever about this in this moment. Now, there's growth there, always. Like, we shouldn't be reacting that way in any situation, but that's very hard to do. Easier said than done. But it's very helpful to know, like, the intent behind somebody's reaction to certain things, and knowing these personality types gets you there.
Yeah, and the last one, the peacemaker, they're the direct opposite of me. So while the challenger can be very confrontational, the peacemaker are literally that. They're the sweetheart. Well, Ian Warren Cron calls them the sweetheart of the Enneagram, because they are motivated by keeping the peace at all costs. They do not want any conflict. They don't want to have, like, ruffle anybody's feathers. Whereas the 8's like, I'm going to ruffle them all. And that's my job. I am determined to ruffle them all to get them to listen to what I have to say. The peacemaker is going to sit back, not have any confrontation. They also have a hard time making decisions, because whereas the 8, I'm the kind of person, the reason I knew I was an 8 and not a 1 is because of that detail-oriented. this is a terrible saying, and I probably shouldn't say it, but my mom always says, like, either piss or get off the pot.
Right.
So that's how I'm thinking. That's when I make decisions. That's what I think. Piss or get off the pot.
Yes.
Make that decision.
Yes.
It's either this, or this. Make your decision. These people in 9s are like, yeah, but what about this? And what about this? And you're like, no.
Mm-hmm. As a 2, I can lean towards that.
Yeah.
Because I won't hurt anybody's feelings.
You are thinking about the reason when you're making decisions, you're thinking about, am I hurting this person's feelings?
Yes.
The 9 is thinking about, I don't want anybody to be upset because I don't want to disturb the peace.
Right. I don't want to deal with, like...
The 1s are detail-oriented, so then they're making the decision. They're thinking, like, step by step. Is this the right one? Is this the right one? Is this the moral one? Because they're motivated by being moral. The achievers are thinking about making decisions as is, what's it going to make me look like? If I make this decision, is it going to make me, what are people going to think about me? Am I going to come out looking right? The investigators are literally making decisions based on facts.
Yeah.
And so
Which is smart.
Yeah, the over here my YOLO people are thinking like,
oh, why not?
Is that gonna be fun? Am I gonna do it? Am I gonna enjoy it? Then let's do it. So like they're all making decisions, and I'm like, good Lord, just make a decision. I don't care why we're making it, just freaking make it. You know, like
I have gotten better at that. Like I have been like, okay, it's good to consider the feelings, it's good to do this, but like you can't let that keep you like. You have all these feelings, but you have to express them definitively in a positive way. Instead of just like, as a feeler, you tend to just like hold them all in, and then you're more likely to let them all out at one time.
Yeah, and Andy, the reason I was thinking about that was because one of the Andy Stanley Leadership podcasts, they had Ian Morgan Cron on, and they were literally talking about how each Enneagram type makes a decision.
Yeah.
And so that's another good one. And you know, he has another book constantly about making good decisions.
Yes.
So we'll link that too. But we all make decisions in certain ways, and it all goes back to what our Enneagram type is like. How are we wired to make the decisions that we're making? So we can all make them. But with that being said, like you can break these up. You know, where we talked out of 1 to 9.
Yeah.
But then they also it's broken up into 3 triads.
Yep.
And it's about where you make your decisions. So the 1s, the 8s, and the 9s, we're the gut triad. So we make all of our decisions by our gut feeling. Yep. Like, you know, we're talking about like the 1s, they're worrying about, they fear corruption, evil, being indefective, not making the right decisions, and that's all coming from their inside. 8s, we have a fear of being harmed or controlled by others. Like I said, I don't like being controlled. And so that comes from my gut. But surprisingly enough, the 9s are in that gut triad as well.
Yeah.
Even though they don't like confrontation, they have fear of being separation and loss, and they make all their decisions in their gut too.
Yeah.
You're the very opposite. You're in the heart triad. So you, the 4s, and the 3s make all your decisions with your heart.
Yes.
Because you fear being unwanted or unworthy. Yep. And the 3s fear being worthless, like not looking good and how people perceive them. And the 4s are making hard decisions because they want to make a personal significance, like personal, be individualistic. Yeah. So they're all thinking from their heart. So I'm making my decision with my gut. You're making your decision with your heart.
Yep.
But then you got the 9s, the 6s, and the 7s who are making their decisions with their head.
Yeah.
So the 5s, they fear being useless and helpless and incapable because they want to make all those right decisions, like, and they want to have all the right information. So you can't put them on the spot. Whereas 6s, they fear being without support or guidance, and the 7s, they feel like being deprived of not that next great thing. Yeah, and they're feeling it in their head, so they're all thinking in their head. Yeah. So we all make decisions in different ways.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I feel like it kind of goes back to like being insightful. I mean, you need all 3 of these things. Sometimes it's good to trust your gut. So it's sometimes really good to use your head. And it's also really good to have somebody who's thinking about the feelings. So when you're developing a team, it's good to have a good little mix. But then you're going to have to realize that there will be some challenges. And that's why being informed and having knowledge is power. I mean, I'm always about that saying. Like, it's the difference between having a functional, cohesive team when you're aware of each other and you take time to discuss this stuff versus not just kind of throwing everybody into the pot and then letting the pot kind of simmer and then those frustrations bubble over. Sometimes people are like, you know, you find you have a whole team of like feelers, and that's not really
That's
a good
not a
thing.
No, it's not.
It's not. Or you have a whole big, it's not good to have all one type, because you need people to grow and feed off of each other and help move things forward. Because I have found if you have all of one type, there's not much growth and development happening there, because there's no other perspective. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's why I think our friendship works so well, because
we see, and our business works well, I think, because like when you sent that first thing out and I was like, I read it and I was thinking, okay, that's great from a heart perspective. But what about the people who don't think about it? Because I don't think about it that way. So
it's so funny.
And I knew that's where you were coming from. Mm-hmm. And I knew that's where you're coming from because I knew you're a 2.
Yep.
And so we can have conversations and we can see it from other perspectives, so we can give a little bit to everybody. And so I think in any business, I think a good leadership in a business has all 3 of those triads involved.
Absolutely.
So like you need somebody who's thinking with their head, who is thinking very soundly about the facts and the way the business is moving and where you need to do. You need that person who's thinking with their gut, like this is good intuition. I'm feeling this is the right way to go. And you need somebody thinking with their heart, is this the right thing? Are we taking care of the people who we're doing this for? Like you need all of those things to make a good team combo. And make good decisions.
And it's funny to me because when we sit down and we talk about things and we're like, okay, let's come up with 10 podcast ideas. We do it separately and then we share, and it's so funny. It's 100% our types, and then we mix them. We're like, this is a good mix. Like, I'll tell her, like, oh, I like this one that you came up with. And she'll be like, oh, I really like this one that you came up with. Usually we pick from each other's lists. Yeah. And it's really cool how we do that, because I'm always like, oh my gosh, yours are so good. Like, you came up with such good things. And it's something I never would have thought of or come up with.
Let me ask you this. Because Chad, when you said, okay, I just thought about this. So I told Chad that we had decided that we were each going to come up with 10 and then bring them together. And you had seen message, you're like, I started working on them. And I was like, crap, I haven't worked on them at all. So then I was like, I need to do it now. So I sit down and I immediately wrote out 9. And that was my gut saying these are it. But how long did it take you to come up with your list?
Oh, a long time.
Because you were thinking about it.
Because it was probably over several weeks. Like when I told you, like, oh, I'd start working on it, I had like 3. And literally, I would like think about it at night in bed and like couldn't sleep. I'd be like, oh, I gotta go write that down because I really like that. And
I was with my gut. I
just
wrote them all down.
List, and then I came up with some more. And then, so I'm constantly kind of in my mind thinking like, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Like, one of my ideas was talking about a product of xylitol. But, in your mind, you're probably like, why would we just talk about that? But there was a lot behind it. I found this lady who does, like, that's all she's about. She's, like, used it her whole life to, like, research. And it was really cool, like, when I saw her. So I wrote it down. I was like, this is awesome because this could really help people. And I went on this feeling rabbit hole over, like, one little product. And so I've had it on my list.
But see, the thing is, I think that's a good I think we could talk about xylitol. Like, it's a very good podcast. Yeah. But you were thinking about it in your feeling terms. I'm like, well, not a lot of people know about xylitol and how it can help you. Like, that's a great, great. That was good.
It's so funny.
It's so weird how we both thought about how we did it the same ways. Yes. And, like, you were thinking about it over time and with your heart, like, how is this going to help people? And I'm like, yep, I wrote it out in 10 minutes. Those sounded like really great podcasts. I felt it. I feel like this is going to be good. I sent it to you and I'm done. And I can put it away. And Chad's like, what the heck? Because he's a perfectionist, right? So he's at 1. So he's thinking.
He probably takes a little time.
Dude, like you literally just wrote that out and you're just going to send it to her like that's your final product. And I'm like, yeah, with my gut. It's going to be great.
And they always are. It is. And I love that about
not always. I have to watch myself when I'm sending out emails because I'm thinking of it. And I'm the kind of person, like, I just get it all out and then I send it. And then I look at it like, what the heck was she thinking when she sent that out? And I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, get it around to the point. Like, I didn't go back and
you get the point. Right. I was talking it in my head and typing it.
I should proofread things.
Oh, my gosh.
Maybe I should do that with my gut feelings,
I'm glad I don't have to email because I'm not a good English and, like, English is not my strong suit. No, I'm not good with, like, spelling and pronunciation and, like, I don't even know what the word is, like commas and whatever.
You'd be thinking about it forever if you had to do it.
My sister is my proofreader for anything important. I have to be like, can you? I thought I had.
What do you think she is? Does she know what she is?
I think my sister is a factual one. Which one is that? An investigator. She's information, facts, boom, decision made. Like she is. and she is not in her feels about anything. She's my other person I always message. I'm like, am I being too sensitive about this? She's like, every time. There's never a time where she's like, no. She's like, yes, you are. So she's a really good balance.
We need
for
those
me.
people. We need those two.
She's super smart. Like my brother-in-law is the same way. And like I said, she's my proofreader. Yes, I would probably say he is too. Which is funny that they're married.
But I could be
wrong. Like
no,
maybe
but
they have parts of that, but
they could work well together. You just like if you know that if they both literally have to think for themselves, like
yes,
I don't know. I
they're
think
so smart.
There's a whole different podcast you can do about relationships and which
conversations with them.
About which Enneagram types have really good relationships.
Yeah,
but I think any Enneagram type can work well together if you are self-aware. And you're aware of what's going on and you think about it that way. Yeah. So I don't think there really is a specific one that's better than the others. I think they all, as long as you know that other person, you can make great decisions in relationships.
That you're making. Sorry to kind of talk over you there.
No.
That's my feelings just jumping out of me. But that's a good point to make is that like all 9 types are good types. There is no bad type to have. Exactly. And if you're thinking like, oh, I got a bad type, that's a little indication of there might be some unhealthiness in there of you thinking of how you are because every type is a good type. Everybody has their strengths and a positive way to use them. So if you're like, man, bummed about your type, you need to do some digging.
Yeah, do some soul searching about it.
Yes, because
and pray about it. It is okay.
It is good. And I was one of those, like, I felt like being so sensitive and in my feelings my whole life. People told me, like, you're so sensitive. Like, you're too sensitive. And I started to see that as a negative. Like, I thought that was a bad thing about me. And I had to really develop that as I got older of like, you know what? It's a good thing. Like, it's positive. It's good. Yes, is there too much in your feelings? Can that be a hindrance and negative? Yes, but there are ways to learn how to use that in a good way. Yeah. And I have learned how to have conversations, that are more direct. And, like, if I'm planning a party, like, I can plan a party now, whereas before I couldn't because I'd be like, well, what do y'all think about this? What does everybody else think? And I wouldn't be like, hey, we're doing this on February 2nd. We're doing a woodlands theme and, like, hey, Autumn, you're going to bring this. Hey, we're going to bring that. When you're planning something with a bunch of people, very useful. You got to do that. You can't just be like, hey, everybody.
That's why I'm a good planner.
Throw your ideas into the pot, and so you just learn over time. Yeah, you're a great planner.
That's why I'm good at it because I delegate and I just take control.
Very
so I just take control and just tell people what to do.
Yeah. See, I had to learn that. Thank you for teaching me. She teaches
me
all kind of good things.
Teaches me how to be nice sometimes. Or think with my heart.
She's always nice. Don't let her fool you. She's always nice. But I feel like this kind of too leads into, we're going to kind of lead into this a little bit next week and kind of mix this into our next podcast topic, which is going to be kind of you matter. Yes, you matter. And it kind of goes into like all good 9 types are good and positive. But in a professional sense, like a lot of people feel like they don't have a voice or their opinions don't matter or their input doesn't matter. And this is one of those that I came up with. Can you tell? Yes, you matter. All the feelings.
Yeah, that's Paige's.
But all of this personal development and growth helps you use your voice in a positive way and helps you have a good, working relationship in work. So we're going to kind of tie in the Enneagrams and the temperaments and personality types.
Yeah, so we'll do because you heard me and Victoria, we kind of talked about temperaments. That's a whole nother thing about how, like, we all are made differently and we all use our words differently. Yes. And so it's really awesome to look for the temperaments. So we'll do that in
the next
April.
Podcast. Yes. Yeah. And it will kind of help you grow in a way of, feeling like you matter and you can express yourself in a positive way in any kind of relationship, but also at work. Because I feel like that is a big problem I see in the dental field is people feel unheard and, like they're just an employee type of thing. And we don't want that for you. So we're hoping that these tests and these things can help you dive into that and, give you a little bit of sense of purpose. And
I think we're going to leave talking. You may have seen our post on our Dental Hygiene Development Facebook.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're all talking about this in a leadership sense, not just a leadership sense, but in a working environment.
Yep.
And we know, like I said, it takes all of us to make a good team.
Yep.
So Paige posted a thing on Dental Hygiene Development and it was about leading into Enneagram and the things that you need to do and visit, like what you can give them a task and how each Enneagram type it'll work well. So we'll kind of go over those, but you can see that on our Dental Hygiene Development page.
If you want to reference.
Did you get this from Enneagram, Ashton, or did you find it
No,
somewhere
I
else?
didn't. I did. I found it online. Like, I was just searching Enneagram stuff, and I loved this. It was like an HR Pro thing.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's really good. Like, as you have to use
Very
these.
good.
But another person we both follow on Instagram, and you can find a lot of like quick things each week about your Enneagram type, and she does all kinds of different ones. Is Enneagram Ashton?
It's Instagram.
Yeah, it's on Instagram. So we'll link her in there too, so you can find stuff. But I think we're gonna end by talking about what you can do with each each person with each type at work. So
Like, if you're a leader in your office, if you know the 9 Enneagram types, it's ways that you can help them thrive.
Exactly.
So they're just short, productive things that you as a leader can know to help your team.
Yep. So the ones they're like we talked about, they're task oriented, kind of like the 8s, but they like details. So make them stick to a deadline.
Yeah. Like, if you're asking something to be done and you say, hey, I want this done by a certain time, have everybody stick to that deadline, because if not, they're going to be frustrated.
Oh, they're going to be overly thinking it, and they might not ever get to it.
Yes. Yep.
So with Paige, if I was going to be leading her, I would give her a meaningful task.
Absolutely.
Because it will make her feel better if she's thinking about it from within.
Yes. I need to know, like, why we're doing this. Like, I need information about, like, why is this important? You know, those types of things. Like, you can't just tell me to do something and be like,
but why?
Why are we doing that? Like, I want to know. That motivates me to know that it's meaningful. So, yep, absolutely.
3s, we want to show appreciation too. Yep. They like words of affirmation. Yep. So we need to let them know they're doing a good job, that we see them.
Yes.
And they're being successful.
Yes. Tell them.
Yes.
Be like, hey, good job. They need that. They need that good job,
absolutely.
attaboy, good girl, whatever. Yeah.
Yep.
For sure.
4s. They like being free. They like freedom, like creative freedom. Yep. So there's the people that are very creative. And so if you need a vision, I think they're the people that have the good visions.
Yep.
They see down the road.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's good, because they can help you with, like, goal casting and that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's hard to look into the future. So
I have a hard time looking in the future because I'm so, like,
in the now.
In the now. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
5s, don't put them on the spot, because they need to know the facts behind it. So they're going to want to go research everything. So make sure they need reports. Give them all your reports. Yes, give them the reports. Let them go by themselves. Let them sit in front of a computer and do all the investigating and all the research you need. They will thrive on that.
I'll also say, as a 2, you don't want to put a 2 on the spot, because they're all about their feelings and they have to process. So, like, if you have to have a meeting, I would say, sorry, I keep going back to me, but I know it's helpful when you are the person. But you don't want to put them on the spot. Like, if you ask them how they're feeling about something, we have so many feelings. In the moment, it's, like, overwhelming when we have to respond to something. I'm always like, an hour later, like, God, I wish I would have responded this way or said that, because I had a minute to process all the feelings that I was having. Yeah. So I would say, as a 2, don't put them on the spot. Their initial answer is going to be terrible, and they're going to hate it later. They're going to be all in their feelings about it. Like,
they're going to be thinking about it all night.
We're going to think about it all night. We're going to lose sleep. So
yeah.
Give them, like, if you have something to discuss with them about it, say, hey, I really want to discuss this with you. You know, this is X, Y, and Z.
We'll talk about it tomorrow.
I'd like to give you some time to think it over, and, we'll talk about it tomorrow, or you let me know when you've kind of thought it through. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have learned, as a 2, that I have to ask for that.
Yeah, you do.
If someone comes to me with something and be like, it's okay for me to say, like, I hear all those thoughts. I have a lot of feelings, and I really would love to take some time and process this. And can we come back to it, tomorrow or, Monday, and give me a time to think about it so I can give you a good response that I feel good about. It's okay to do that. And I have been very bad about that. I feel like, I've got to answer right now, and I'm always regretting it. Like, man, I responded emotionally, and I wish I wouldn't have done that. So I responded with my human nature, the unhealthy side of my 2, when we give those quick responses on the spot. And I have learned that that's unhealthy for me. I'm not good at an initial response like that. And so I have to ask for what I need in that moment and say, hey, I'm emotional about this right now, in my feelings. give me a little bit, process.
That's a good way for us to lead into the next one.
Absolutely.
And then 6 is we want to display trust for them. We want to let them know that we trust them. And when they feel that we trust them, then they feel trust and they have less anxiety.
Yeah.
So make sure we give those 6s that loyalty, that we know that we trust them.
Absolutely.
Also 7s, appreciate their ideas and energy. Like I said, I appreciate Erin's energy when she comes into work every day because she's just so
Don't be the dream killer.
Exactly. Oh, I'm such a dream killer. But she comes in with just like such a good just like a good feeling and a good energy, and we need those people every day.
I feel like for them, it's really good to just be like in the moment with them.
Mm-hmm.
Be in the moment with them.
Yep.
And if you have any reservations or things that you need to reel in, give it some time. Don't just crush them right there in the moment. If they're excited and their energy's high, like that's awesome. Like just be on the awesome train with them for a little bit.
Yep.
Let them have that.
Let them
have it.
Let them have it. Yeah.
And then you can maybe, a couple days later be like, hey, like X, Y, and Z.
Yep. With 8s, for me, you want to allow them to prove their strengths. So this is kind of like allowing them to have some control of those things. Of course, we have to learn at 8. You have to be able to learn that you cannot always be in control. Yep. But if you let them lead one thing or like let them be in control of one thing, then they can feel like they can hone all of that energy into one thing.
Yeah.
So definitely allow them to prove that they have that strength there.
Yes. Don't micromanage them. Give them their task and let them run with it.
Oh my gosh. So micromanagement is going to make me crazy. Don't do that. It's just going to frustrate them and then they're going to be unhealthy for sure.
Honestly, you shouldn't micromanage any personality type.
Yeah.
If you do that, you're unhealthy in your personality type if you're micromanaging.
Yes, absolutely.
So dig into that. But 8s really don't. Yeah. Don't do it.
And our 9s, our sweethearts of the Enneagram, we want to check on them regularly to make sure that they're feeling calm, that they're feeling cohesive, that there's not any...
They are not going to bring it up.
They're not going to bring it up because they do not want conflict. So we need to check in with them to make sure they're okay, so they feel a safe space to come to if they do have something going on, and they don't feel like it's going to bring conflict to it.
You're probably not going to want to talk to them in a group setting. They are the type that would be better like one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
For sure, because they're not going to speak up in a room full of people. 2s probably aren't either.
Yeah. So you need to be very mindful about how you're approaching them. But definitely with the 9s, we want to make sure we're talking to them separately, checking on them, making sure there's nothing that we need to discuss because they're the kind that if you finally push them to the point where they're going to have conflict, it's bad.
It's bad.
It's bad. Yeah. And you don't want them to get to that point. We don't want anybody to get to their unhealthy point.
They would probably be the person to just walk away. And
you're like, what happened?
Goodbye.
She never even told me something was wrong. Yeah. So, with them, you want to check on them regularly to make sure and just feel a safe space for them so they know they have that.
Honestly, in a leadership position, you should be doing that with all of your types, like checking in with them in their own ways. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yep. It's always good to check in.
All right. Like we said, there's a lot to the Enneagram. Like we could sit here and continue to talk, but we'll come back to it. Yeah. Also, if you have any, like we gave you some resources that we use. If you have, like if you're into the Enneagram and you found resources or a book or something,
that you love,
let us know because I love that kind of stuff. And we can come back, and if you want, like if you feel like you really want to know more about leadership in it or making decisions in them or how, there's wings and there's arrows and all kinds of stuff. So, like, we can go back into this again. Yeah. But this was just kind of like hitting it from the surface.
And I feel like we would love, like, if you know your personality type, like you've gone through this and you have perspective of like, this is really how I would love to be addressed or treated in a workspace. Because we're an 8 and a 2. So I can give you my perspective of like, hey, I'm a 2. I need you to talk to me one-on-one, not in a big group setting, and I need you to give me some time to process my feelings, so come back to it later. So how would you as a 5, prefer that type of thing? Give it to us in the comments so that we have a better perspective. Yes, and we can share that. And so people know more of what you need.
Exactly.
Because we're not those personality types, so we can think that we might know how you would like it, and we do our best to try to understand that, but it's awesome to hear it from somebody who is that personality type, like, hey, no, this is how I would like it, Yeah,
so, and if you put it out there for other people, then
we all learn.
Yeah. So, like we said, we want to use our platform, our DHD DHD Facebook pages, Instagram, for you to put those things out there. Comment on the YouTube channel what yours is, what makes you feel good, so everybody can learn from it.
Yes. Well, we're trying to create a healthy dental work environment for dental hygienists as well. And we do that through developing ourselves first and foremost, which is also going to kind of lead into our podcast that we do for the next half of the month. But we really, really want to turn that stigma around for hygienists because it seems to be a big problem. And so we want it to be positive and good and that kind of thing. So
So that being said, come back and see us on the 15th so we can talk a little bit more about respectfully using your voice and speaking up for you. But follow us on all things DHD.
Yep, they'll be linked below in the description, so easy access to those things. And always engage with us. Tell us what you want to hear about more.
Yeah.
We're here for you.
We would really appreciate if you shared us to your friends. We want to get involved. We want to be as involved as we can. We want to hit as many hygienists that we can.
Yep.
So everybody feels involved, and this is a big, huge community.
Yeah. Because just think, if everybody in your office had access to this information and was engaging with it, how different would your office be? You're probably sitting there now thinking like, gosh, I wish my team could do X, Y, and Z. Guess what?
They can.
They can. You be the person to maybe bring that. I think this would be great for our office. What do you guys think about
Talk
sitting
about
down
it.
and doing it?
Talk to your doctor about it. Let them know. Talk to your office manager. Say, hey, I think this will help us grow in the
Go
office.
find the 8 in your office if you're not it, and have them present it
There you go.
to
That's
the
a
office.
good way to do it.
You know, whatever.
That's a good way to do it.
Work. But yes, we want to help as many dental hygienists and professionals as we can. Happiness. My feelings thrive in happiness, and we want everybody to feel that way in their careers as much as possible. So.
Yeah.
Thanks
All right,
for
guys.
joining us.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back on the 15th. Bye.
Yep.